I'd now like to call Mr. Mudassar Aqil, CEO Finance, Microfinance Bank. The topic is Finance Disrupted. Sir, please come.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Simi Sahaba, thank you very much for the introduction. Just a minor correction, the name of the institution is actually FINCA Microfinance Bank. I can't believe I've actually landed the speaking slot just before the lunch, but I'll make the best out of it. I know that we are under time crunch. We have Turkish president descending upon us very soon, and lunch is actually served, and it's smelling pretty good. So I'll cut right to the chase. I'll keep it very brief, but I would request your attention because I'll try to make it relevant to all of you. So the topic that is given to me is finance disrupted, which is funny because when I was a kid, every time I was disruptive, I got in trouble at school. But now my board wants to be disruptive. So it's funny how things have changed over the last few years. But really, financial services sector is going through the biggest disruption that it has experienced in the history of banking in the last 200 years. So just before I get into it, let me just give you a lay of the land. So globally, there are about 2 billion people who do not have access to financial services. So that's a little more than 50% of the adult population of the world. Even in our own country, 85% of the people do not have access to financial services. So when I say financial services, what I mean by that is having a simple transaction banking account, having a savings account, a small loan, or insurance policy. All of those things that have been proven with research that have a direct impact on the economic well-being of a society, generation of employment, living standards of people, etc. So this is an established fact now that one of the biggest interventions that can be made to have a big impact on human condition in the world today is giving people access to financial services. So it's been 40 years since the legendary Dr. Yunus started the microfinance revolution out of Bangladesh. And we fast forward 4 decades and we still have 2 billion people who do not have access to financial services. So obviously, if we continue following the model that we've been following in the last 4 decades, we probably won't be able to fill this gap. So what we really need to do is actually adopt the new principles of the 21st century, which are disrupting so many different industries, and financial services is just one of them. So there are 2 broad principles that I will introduce to you, which I believe that if adopted can disrupt the financial services and help us win this war that we've been on the losing end of it since the banking started 200 years ago, which is giving the necessity of a basic financial services account to every adult of this world. So principle number 1, that every time digital versus analog will have a battle, digital will win. So digital always wins over analog. So let me give you an example to illustrate that. So think about what happened to your snail mail when email came, right? So hardly, I think, anyone in this room still writes letters and puts them in an envelope and puts a, stamp on it and then goes to the post office to drop it in the mailbox. So what digital does to analog is actually, it makes the experience almost near time. If not near time, then almost near time. And then also demonetizes it. So in majority of the instances, it makes it free. So for instance, I'll give you another example. You know, what WhatsApp has done to monetize text messages. You know, what has happened to analog landlines when digital MNOs or telcos have come into the play, and then now WhatsApp of the world and Skypes of the world are doing exactly the same with them. I'll give you another example which is probably very close to everyone's heart. What happened to Encyclopedia Britannica? It got disrupted by Wikipedia, right? So again, it's real time, it's free, people can contribute to it. So so this is exactly what is happening to financial services also. So you can actually get instant gratification if you have access to broadband that Tariq Saab from PTA repeatedly emphasized the importance of having access to broadband, and 40 million people in Pakistan today, because of 3G and 4G connectivity and cheap smartphones, have access to broadband, and we are still adding about 1 million new people a month, which is a staggering pace. So if you have provided people access, and they can actually, and they have a smartphone and they have access to broadband, they can actually be sitting in the comfort of their home, they can download an app, in a matter of few minutes, they can open a bank account. So instant gratification, real-time experience, again, this is going to disrupt banking also. So if banks don't change their business model, somebody else will come and essentially displace them. The second principle that I want to share with you is try to be a platform and not a pipeline. So, you know, what that means is that traditionally, the way value is created is that you take some raw material, you add a little bit of value to it, you add some margins to it, and then you sell it to the end consumer, and that's how you make money. This is exactly what financial services have done for as long as we can remember in history. So even today, a majority of the banks take deposits from consumers, they package it in a loan product, they keep some margin, they sell it to the end consumer, and that's how they make money. But what is happening now in the digital economy, that organizations are bringing consumers and other parties together where they collectively create new value. So organizations are really facilitating interactions, but they're not really providing anything themselves, right? So many of the participants here gave an example of Uber, which is really bringing drivers and people who need to go somewhere together on a platform without actually owning any inventory, without owning any cabs or anything. Similarly, Airbnb is doing the same thing with the hospitality industry, that they're providing those people who have an extra room and those people who have a need to stay somewhere in a different city, and they bring them together. They don't really own any properties anywhere in the world, but yet they're actually essentially, for all practical purposes, the largest hotel chain in the world. So there's another platform that probably, I would argue, 99% of the people, if not 100%, are a member in this room. That platform is Facebook, right? So what Facebook does is actually facilitating people to create their own content, and think about how people are creating value. Every time you click on that like button, that's the value that Facebook is creating, which essentially is being created by all of you. So what Facebook wants to do is to facilitate that more and more people are liking more and more new content, and every time you click on that, there's new value. So that's the smallest unit of value that a platform is creating in the face of Facebook. So now we bring this platform model to financial services. How would it apply to banking? Can you think of what's the smallest unit of value that a banking user experiences? It's actually making a payment, right? So people have a need to make a payment. Right now, just like all the analog businesses that I just shared with you, banks are in the business of monetizing payments. So they monetize every time you go and use your credit card at a POS machine. The merchant has to pay, anywhere between 2% to 2.5%. You go to many of the agent banking solutions that we have in Pakistan, you end up paying anywhere between 3 to 4% of the money you're remitting. But I can tell you this, if we are learning anything from what is happening in the digital economy, nobody is going to be paying 4% or 3% of the transaction cost in the future. So, what my prophecy is, if I say so, is that eventually over a period of time, payments will become free. And there will be organizations, and if they're not banks, then somebody else will come along who will create platforms where new digital players like fintechs who add new value will be brought together with the consumers, and new value will be created. And people will come and consume all of these services essentially for free because their incremental cost is also close to free. So many of you must be thinking that, okay, this is all business magazine talk. I read a lot of articles. I'm sure all of you do also. So how does this come to our country? So I want to share with you something that we've been working on, and it's in a pilot phase. I have a very short video, so 1-minute video. Can we play that video, please?
QR payments? Biryani mil rahi hai? For how much?
1 rupee.
How did you buy it?
By scanning a QR code. I'm one of the 100 people who did it.
Wow! हो गया scan?
Yeah, now.
₹1 की biryani मिल रही है. That's why there's a big rush here. ₹1 का लोग ले रहे हैं biryani. Hafiz Center, ₹1 biryani.
Sir, यहाँ पे 1 लिखेंगे ना?
1 लिखे.
ये करना है हाँ सोर्स अकाउंट से आते हैं सोर्स अकाउंट ये आपका बैंक अकाउंट नंबर है आप सब आपने उसका नाम बताया
जबरदस्त QR कोड स्कैन हो रहा है और फिर ₹1 की बिरयानी जबरदस्त हो गया हमारा शकरकंदी for ₹1
He wants शकरकंदी.
शकरकंदी. भाई ये ले.
शकरकंदी.
Yeah, now you can try.
Where's this QR code?
Oh, this is so easy.
It is.
Great. So this is happening right here in the city of Lahore. We have now close to 5,000 people who are in the pilot phase, making digital payments, which are completely free, using QR codes, which is what I call the 21st century POS machine, which is essentially a sticker, a piece of paper that you can onboard any merchant and enable them to make digitized payments. And you saw that people are buying biryani and Coke. Average people who didn't have a bank account, they actually opened the bank account about 5 minutes before they wanted to buy that product. Then this street seller who is selling sweet potatoes, shakarkandi, which is a big treat in the wintertime in Lahore, people are actually going to somebody who is selling this on a push cart, who's been enabled now to accept digital payments because they're free. So it doesn't cost him anything. So the future, ladies and gentlemen, is here in your own country, in this very city. We are in a hyper-exclusive trial phase. If any of you would like to try it out, I would invite you to go to www.simsim.com.pk and indicate that what kind of wallet you want. There are two types, either a merchant or a consumer. So I would think that most of you would want a consumer wallet, and we will contact you and get you onboarded. So thank you very much for your attention, and have a good day. Thanks.